Welcome to Cozy English Story, a place where powerful stories help you improve your English naturally. Close your eyes for a moment, take a deep breath, and get ready to listen, not just with your ears, but with your heart. Today's story is emotional, dramatic, and unforgettable. It's about pride, rivalry, and a moment that changes everything. As you listen, focus on the feelings, the words, the expressions. Let the story carry you. Now, let's begin. My name is Adrian Cole, and for most of my adult life, I measured success by one thing: beating Victor Hale. People in the industry called us legends, rivals, opposites. If I secured a contract, he would take two. If he launched a campaign, I would outspend him just to prove a point. Our companies grew side by side like twin skyscrapers, each trying to block the other's sunlight. But what no one understood was how personal it had become. It hadn't started that way. 5 years earlier, when we were both climbing the ladder, I actually admired him. Victor was sharp, calm, calculated. While I was aggressive and bold, he was strategic and patient. We were different, but equal. At least, that's how I saw it at first. Then came the Henderson deal. It was the biggest contract either of us had ever competed for. I worked for months. Late nights, missed birthdays, endless revisions. I was certain it was mine. But in this final meeting, Henderson chose Victor. I'll never forget the way Victor looked at me afterward. Not smug, not arrogant, sympathetic. That look burned more than losing. I didn't want his sympathy. I wanted his defeat. From that day forward, admiration turned into obsession. I studied his weaknesses. I targeted his clients. I undercut his pricing just to force him into uncomfortable decisions. Every victory felt like revenge. Every loss felt like humiliation. And pride fed the fire. Whenever someone mentioned his name, my jaw tightened. Whenever headlines compared us, I read them twice. I convinced myself that he was trying to destroy me, so I had no choice but to destroy him first. Years passed like that. Tension hardened into hatred. Then came the night of the accident. We had both attended a high-profile investor meeting downtown. Rain hammered against the windows during the presentation, thunder shaking the glass. The atmosphere inside the conference room was just as charged. The investors announced their decision near the end of the evening. They chose me. Again. Applause filled the room. I shook hands, accepted congratulations, but my eyes searched for Victor. He stood across the room, face composed as always. He nodded once in my direction, professional, distant, but something about him looked tired. I ignored it. Winning tasted too sweet. I left the building around 10 p.m. The storm had worsened. Rain poured so heavily it blurred the streetlights into glowing halos. My driver had the night off, so I took my own car. As I pulled onto the highway, my phone buzzed with congratulatory messages. I didn't respond. I just replayed the meeting in my mind, savoring it. Another victory. Another reminder that I was ahead. The highway stretched dark and nearly empty. Water sprayed up from my tires. I should have driven slower, but pride makes you careless. About 20 minutes into the drive, traffic ahead slowed suddenly. Red brake lights flickered through the rain. I pressed my brakes, but the road was slick. Too slick. Then it happened. A large transport truck ahead lost control. I watched in horror as it jackknifed across lanes. Cars swerved violently. One slammed into the guardrail. I tried to steer away, but my car hydroplaned. Time fractured. The steering wheel jerked from my hands. My vehicle spun sideways. I heard metal collide with metal. The world flipped. Once, twice. Glass exploded around me like icy rain. Then, everything went black. When consciousness returned, it came in fragments. A ringing in my ears. The taste of blood. The smell of gasoline. I was hanging upside down, held by my seatbelt. My head throbbed. Something warm ran down my forehead. My right leg screamed with pain when I tried to move it. The car had rolled onto its roof. Rain poured through the shattered windows, soaking my suit, mixing with blood on my face. I tried to unbuckle myself, but my hands were shaking too badly. Then I heard something that made my heart stop. A crackling sound. Smoke. I looked toward the front of the car and saw faint orange light flickering under the hood. Fire. Panic surged through me so violently, it stole my breath. I yanked at the seatbelt. It released suddenly, and I collapsed onto the crushed ceiling, which was now beneath me. Pain exploded in my leg. I screamed. The driver's side door wouldn't budge. The frame had folded inward. I was trapped. For the first time in years, I wasn't thinking about contracts or rivals or headlines. I was thinking about dying. Rain pounded outside. Thunder roared overhead. My vision blurred. Then I heard tires screeching nearby. A car door slammed. Footsteps splashing through puddles, and a voice shouting my name. Adrian! No, it couldn't be. The sound grew closer. A shadow appeared at the shattered window. Adrian, can you hear me? I forced my eyes open wider. Victor. He looked just as shocked to see me, but he didn't hesitate. He tried the passenger door. It wouldn't open. He moved to the driver's side and pulled with everything he had. The metal groaned but stayed twisted. Stay with me! He shouted over the storm. Go! I managed to choke out. It's going to blow! He ignored me. Without another word, he ran back toward his car. For a terrifying second, I thought he was leaving. Then he came back with a tire iron. He jammed it into the crumpled frame near my leg and pushed. The muscles in his arms strained. Rain soaked him completely. Blood trickled from a cut near his eyebrow. He must have been in the crash, too. The metal shifted slightly. Smoke thickened. Victor, I whispered. Don't. He looked at me then, really looked at me, and something passed between us that had never existed before. Not rivalry, not anger, human fear. Shut up, he said through clenched teeth. You're not dying tonight. He pushed again. The frame lifted just enough for my leg to move. Pain tore through me as he pulled me free. Flames burst from the engine seconds later. He dragged me across wet asphalt, away from the wreckage, just as the car ignited behind us. The explosion lit up the highway in violent orange. We both lay there in the rain, gasping, staring at the sky. Sirens wailed in the distance. I turned my head toward him. Why? I whispered. He didn't answer. His eyes were already closing. When I woke up again, the world was quiet. Too quiet. The storm was gone. The smell of smoke was gone. Instead, there was sterile air and the steady rhythm of a heart monitor somewhere nearby. My body felt heavy, like it didn't belong to me. My leg throbbed. My ribs ached every time I inhaled. I tried to lift my hand and saw an IV line taped to my wrist. Hospital. The memory returned instantly. The crash, the flames, the rain. Victor. I turned my head too fast and pain shot through my skull. A nurse stepped into view. Easy, Mr. Cole. You're safe. Victor, I croaked. My throat felt raw. The man who was with me. Her expression shifted slightly. He's in surgery. The words hit harder than the accident. What? He sustained internal injuries and smoke inhalation. He went back toward the vehicle after pulling you out. Emergency responders said he collapsed near the flames. My stomach dropped. He went back. For me. The nurse continued gently. The doctors are doing everything they can. Everything they can. That phrase suddenly felt terrifying. Hours passed in a blur of pain medication and anxious silence. Reporters had already begun calling the hospital. Word of the accident spread quickly. 2 of the city's most competitive businessmen involved in a near-fatal crash. The headlines probably wrote themselves. Rivals survive highway inferno. But none of that mattered. All I could think about was the moment he looked at me through shattered glass and chose to run toward danger instead of away from it. Late the next afternoon, a doctor finally entered my room. "He's stable," she said. The air left my lungs in a rush I hadn't realized I was holding. "He'll need time to recover, but he's conscious. You can see him briefly." They wheeled me down the hallway in a chair because I insisted on going immediately. Each push of the wheels felt like a countdown. When they stopped outside his room, my hands were shaking. Victor lay in the bed, pale against the white sheets. His arm was in a sling. Bruises darkened one side of his face. An oxygen tube rested beneath his nose. For the first time in 5 years, he didn't look like my rival. He looked fragile. His eyes opened slowly when he sensed movement. "They let you out already?" he muttered weakly. I let out a breath that almost sounded like a broken laugh. "Not exactly." Silence stretched between us. It felt unfamiliar, not tense, not hostile. Just quiet. "Why?" I asked finally. My voice cracked. "Why would you do that?" He stared at the ceiling for a long moment, as if choosing his words carefully. "Because I couldn't let you die," he said simply. "That's not an answer." He turned his head slightly toward me. "It is." I shook my head. "After everything? After years of trying to beat each other into the ground?" He closed his eyes briefly. "Adrian, none of that matters when someone's trapped in a burning car." The words were soft, but they struck with force. "You hate me," I said quietly. His eyes opened again, and for the first time since I'd known him, I saw something close to sadness there. "I never hated you." The statement stunned me more than the crash. "What?" "I competed with you," he clarified. "I respected you. But hate? No." I felt disoriented. "Then why did it feel like war?" I demanded. He exhaled slowly, wincing slightly from the effort. "Because you turned it into one." The words landed heavily between us. "When we first met," he continued, "I admired your ambition. You were fearless, driven. I thought we could push each other to be better." His gaze drifted toward the window. "But after the Henderson contract, something changed in you." I felt heat rise in my chest. "You looked at me like I'd stolen something personal," he said. "After that, every meeting became aggressive. Every negotiation felt like revenge." He wasn't wrong. I remembered that day clearly. The humiliation, the sympathy in his eyes, the wound to my pride. "I thought you were looking down on me," I admitted quietly. Victor frowned slightly. "I wasn't. I saw pity." "It wasn't pity," he replied. "It was understanding. I'd lost contracts before, too." The realization hit me slowly. For years, I had built an entire narrative inside my head. That he saw me as inferior, that he wanted to crush me, that I had to strike first. Pride had written a story that wasn't true. "I let it get personal," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Yes," he agreed gently. There was no accusation in his tone. just truth. And I fought back, he added, not because I hated you, but because I refused to be pushed around. The room grew still. I almost let you die because of that pride, I said. He shook his head slightly. No, pride almost let you die. I just happened to be there. Something inside me cracked open then. Something I had kept locked away for years. I've spent so much energy trying to prove I'm better than you, I confessed. Every deal, every headline. I thought if I stopped competing, I'd disappear. Victor's expression softened. You don't disappear by sharing the spotlight, he said. You disappear by losing yourself. That sentence lodged deep in my chest. For years, I had measured my worth against his failures. I defined success by his losses. I convinced myself that rivalry was strength. But lying in that hospital room, bruised and humbled, I saw how small that thinking had been. You went back, I said quietly, after you pulled me out. He gave a faint, tired smile. I saw flames spreading under the hood. I wasn't sure if you were fully free. You could have died. So could you. The simplicity of that answer stripped everything else away. No contracts, no competition, just two human beings in a moment of crisis. I'm sorry, I said finally. The words felt heavier than any business apology I'd ever given. For what? He asked softly. For mistaking pride for strength, for seeing you as an enemy instead of a man. His eyes held mine for a long moment. I forgive you, he said, not dramatic, not grand, just honest. Weeks passed after that. Recovery was slow. Physical therapy tested my patience. The media tried to frame the accident as a dramatic rivalry twist. They were wrong. It wasn't dramatic. It was clarifying. When Victor and I returned to work months later, something had shifted. We still competed, but cleanly, respectfully, without the venom. One afternoon, we met for coffee. No lawyers, no assistants, no tension. I guess trying to kill each other with spreadsheets was exhausting, he joked lightly. I laughed, genuinely. I was blind, I admitted. I thought pride made me powerful. It makes you fragile, he corrected. He was right. Pride had almost cost me my life, and it nearly cost me something worse, my humanity. As I stand in my office now, months later, watching the city lights flicker below, I sometimes replay that night in my mind. The rain, the fire, the moment my so-called enemy ran toward danger. Victor didn't just save me from a burning car. He saved me from a burning ego. I learned something no business school could ever teach. Pride convinces you that winning is everything, but forgiveness reminds you that being human is more important. My enemy saved my life. And in doing so, he opened my eyes. And that's the end of today's story. At Cozy English Story, we believe English is not just a language. It's a way to feel, to connect, and to understand others. If this story touched your heart, write kindness in the comments. Tell me, what did you learn from this story? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new emotional English story. Keep listening, keep learning, and most importantly, keep being kind. See you in the next story.